at the Country Heritage Park in Milton, Ontario for the 2017 STEAM show and Heritage Fair. Now we're in the steam engine display shed. And this one is, these two here can't move on their own. As a matter of fact, I think most of the ones here are not self-propelled. The size of the flywheel on that one. This one at the end is self-propelled. And then this one is probably one of the largest ones you'll ever see. You can see how much larger this is. This was made in Hamilton, Ontario. Now this one would be used more for construction work or for the very large farms out west. This one has a fully enclosed cab. Oh, almost fully enclosed. The Robert Bell Engine and Thresher Company, Seaforth, Ontario. So back in the days when even a small town could have its own manufacturer of heavy equipment. We were a little mystified by this. There is obviously a seat, but it's mounted on the front and it's upside down. Now, this particular steam engine is not self-propelled, so it has to be pulled around. And when we looked up here at the smokestack, you see that there's a hinge. So obviously when it came time to move this puppy, they would fold the smokestack down. The seat would then go up there, and the driver would actually be sitting over where the smokestack would normally reside, and then he would be able to have the reins for the horses that would be pulling it to its next job. Yeah, we were a little confused when we saw this. Now it all makes sense to me. I can die now. Kids thought I should get a shot of this. A cutaway of a boiler with some electronics showing how the steam goes and does the work, and how the hot gases go from the firebox through the tubes to the smoke box at the front and up the exhaust. And of course, as they push the buttons, and they have to push every button, interesting cutaway of a boiler. And this is how you transport your steam tractor. With a gooseneck float. And there is their tractor at the front of the gooseneck there. The Ontario Military Vehicle Association also had a display at the steam show. You can see some of their vehicles. Some have already left because this is basically the end of the day. We have a few Jeeps here, and here's an Iltis back there, and a Deuce and a Half. We'll take a closer look at him in a minute. So here's the Canadian Deuce and a Half. I forget the exact M classification number, but these were used from the early 50s all the way up into the mid 80s. I remembered when these were replaced, and these were built by General Motors Canada. And they were very, very worn out by the 80s when they were finally replaced. And when my father was in the Canadian Armed Forces, when he was in Mobile Command, he had a weather office that was actually built in the back of one of these. It was a big box that was strapped on, and it was the entire weather office. And they had a trailer. The trailer was similar to this, only it had a large directional antenna in order to follow weather balloons. And if there was a 1/35th scale model I wish that somebody would do, it would be this vintage deuce and a half. Here's a 1950s Dodge 3/4 ton. This one was made in the early 50s. This odd looking one here, I believe, is from the Netherlands. Not sure what this is. It looks like an armored version of the Canadian military pattern vehicle. It says GM on the top of the radiator. Certainly looks like it's based on a CMP. And the Hamilton Bridge Company Limited. And here is a Dodge Command car. Yep. And here we have a Super Sherman. I believe it's the M3E8, but it's a much more powerful gun. But it has the horizontal volute suspension on it and the extra wide tracks, so it's definitely post Second World War. Also at the show there's a selection of antique automobiles, including this one, which is Rolls-Royce 1924. The Thunderbird just went by. It's a Ford Model A. I remember these Triumphs from the 70s. Here's a much older Triumph. Here's a Buick. Here's a 1963 Ford Falcon. Convertible. Here's a Model A pickup truck. Very similar to the Woody I built as a model of as a kid. You could build this from the monogram kit. And over there, in the shadow, is another Ford Model A. That's pretty cool. No hydraulics. Here we have an old Mack truck.
Apparently that one was made in like 1925.
1925? Yeah, Sandra just said that's been around since 1925.
That model was manufactured.
Cool. This is a pretty old, I'm thinking it might be a Best or a Caterpillar, I'm not sure. They will capture the data on here. We've got some other old machines here. We've got a Buffalo Springfield steamroller, or I should say roller, because it's not steam powered. And a Caterpillar D4. And here we have a Cle-Trac. Cleveland Manufacturing. And then we have a Caterpillar 30 and another Cle-Trac. Oh, and this one has a high drive wheel on it. That's kind of cool. So here we have a home-built steam-powered concrete mixer. Certainly interesting. Very cool.